Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music. It is Earl Henrishon who is here today to talk about that. We'll talk about E.O. Smith, where he teaches, and even we'll talk about the music festival coming up in Hartford, too. But Earl, good morning. Thank you for joining me for this morning. And for starters, tell me about the Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music. Who are they and what do they do?
What's up, Wayne? Thanks for having me, man. Short, quick story. You were talking about tornado warnings. We actually had a tornado warning last year during our festival. It's shut. Yeah, man, it's been crazy. The weather stuff around New England is nuts. So yeah, we took cover under a bridge and in like secret little bunkers at the riverfront. It was nuts. So tornado warning last year. So yeah, I am.
Just to clarify, it didn't hit though.
It did not hit. It did not hit.
Did it ever verify? Did it ever touch down someplace else? Or did it just
I don't
not
think
fall?
so, but it was nuts. Like crazy wind, crazy rain. Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Did that spook you out?
It made me mad. It made me mad. We've had some rain the last couple of years, but you play in outdoor events. This is what happens in New England, right? Yeah. So So my name's Earl Henrishon. I'm a health and PE department head at E.O. Smith. I'm finishing up my 25th year there. I'm an old man now. And years ago, I have no shame. And so when one of my former students taught me to play guitar, I was like, let's start writing songs and playing them out at school functions and stuff. And that sort of morphed into, I'm a Hartford resident, to us starting a band when a couple of them graduated. And, 10 years later, we won 3 Best of Hartfords and helped create the Hartbeat Music Festival and have played some really, really fun shows and have had a lot of great moments, a lot of good relationships.
Well, I want to hear more of the story about how a student taught you to play guitar. Isn't it usually the other way around?
Listen, I don't think teachers know everything about everything, right? Anybody who thinks they do is lying. I had this kid when he was a freshman in my health class, and by the time he was a senior, I had gotten into surfing, and I had gotten interested in a guy named Jack Johnson who was playing guitar. And so I was like, I want to play guitar now. And so this guy and I had been talking. So he'd stop by my office from time to time and show me basic chords. And it sort of just went from there. Yeah.
Now, when I took guitar lessons, this is in Trumbull, about 500 years ago, I still remember I learned the song Blue on Blue, the Bobby Benton classic. What was the first song you learned?
Oh, that's a good question.
Multiple
I think it was a Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison, yeah. And I was able to play, instead of going like full chords, I was able to play like a note with one finger. So we were able to play at a school function. There's a YouTube video out there of the first performance we ever had. That's me, Dave Kapusky, and Chris Beaudry, who just opened up the River Room playing saxophone. And I barely knew how to play that song at that point.
Are you saying Chris is a member of the Professors of Sweet Sweet?
No, I'm saying Chris was smart enough to get out early. But yeah, he's a great guy, and I've known Chris for a long time, and I'm sure he'll jump in with us again when he's around. But he sort of just helped us out. We were like, Chris, come cover us, and he did.
Chris is the guy that connected us for this program
Correct.
This morning after a prior appearance we had here in the
Correct.
studio by Chris Beaudry of the outstanding River Room. Are the Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music going to play the River Room?
Yeah, I'm sure we will at some point. We've been talking. We're big. There's 6 of us, and we're loud. We've turned into sort of a bigger outdoor event festival sort of band, and we do play indoors, but oftentimes we're a little loud. So we might do some acoustic version, or maybe we talked about maybe bringing out a small Hartbeat show, maybe 3 bands do an acoustic set or something. So we'll definitely be out here at some point. We were just out here for the Willimantic Street Fest in May, and that was a blast. Yeah.
Now I'm connected the dots. Are you a guitar player in the Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music?
I am a guitar player and a singer, believe it or not, even though my voice is barely hanging on right now, but yeah.
What's that, all the teaching you're doing at Smith?
I would love to say that it was that, but we had a show Friday night, and then we had a Hartbeat pre-show on Saturday where we had 6 bands playing at Parkville Market, so there's a lot of talking and a lot of singing, and so I'm a little stuffed up, even though I talk crap to my wife every time she gets sick, because I do this thing called Wim Hof breathing in the morning, and I haven't been sick in a long time. And so when I get sick, she laughs at me. So I'm a little sick.
So I'm looking at your T-shirt.
Yes.
Hartbeat, a Hartford Music Festival.
Correct.
Your witness. What is it?
This is So the Hartbeat Music Festival. So like I said, we're based out of Hartford, and at one point we were doing pre-pandemic. We were doing a first Thursday show out of the Republic at the Linden in Hartford. So we were connecting with all sorts of musicians of all genres. Right, Hartford's got a lot of different sounds and a lot of different styles. And we were starting to be totally blown away by the musicians that were out there. And we were like, holy crap, how does everybody not know like this band or whatever, right? And so we had played a show at the Riverfront. They did a music series. And our bass player at the time, Tony Kuz, who now lives in Indonesia with his wife, and he spearfishes and surfs and like lives on like $10 a day with one pair of shorts. He
loves it.
Yeah. He's not struggling. He's doing all right. We talk from time to time on WhatsApp. But he talked to the Riverfront president and was like, how do we get down on this stage by the river? It seems like it's an awesome spot and maybe underutilized. And so about a month later, he reached out to us and brought me and Tody in for a meeting and was like, what do you think about 3 bands on the riverfront? And I was thinking, what do you think about 2 stages? And then I came back a month later, I'm like, what if we ran the sound on a 3rd stage? And so the first year had like 30 acts and they were game. And a lot of the bands did it just because we asked. We didn't have a lot of money to pay them. And then things have gone from there. I feel like it's a true community event where the bands are working together with us in Riverfront.
And it's coming up the weekend after next.
Yeah.
And you guys are playing there.
We are, yeah. We're on at 4:30, but the event goes from noon to 9 p.m. So there's 21 musical acts, and they are a lot of the best that Northeast New England has to offer.
And what's the admission, Earl?
Yeah, the admission is $0. It's totally free. Riverfront does a lot of work to write grants to help pay for the sound and help pay for the bands. And it's family friendly. It is full of awesome food and drink. There's going to be a lot of family activities there. So, we're crossing our fingers for a nice day. When that happens, we get thousands and thousands of people who come down to the Riverfront at Hartford. And if you've never been there, this space is amazing. Right on the river. We have 3 stages spread out from the Science Center down to the river. It's going to be a really fun day. Hope if you've never come into Hartford and been to the Riverfront, I would encourage you to come check it out.
Earl, is it going rain or shine? You talked about the bad
Yeah,
weather.
so...
What happens if we have a day like we had last Saturday?
Yeah. So if that happens, Arch Street Tavern, which is a music venue in Hartford, is going to open up, and we're going to move the music inside, which is what we did last year on the fly. We probably won't be able to get all acts in, but we'll do what we can. So there is actually an after party at our street tavern after the festival at 9 p.m. We have live band karaoke going so anyone can jump up and sing with the band. And our friend Kate the Dreamer, who moved out to Los Angeles and basically became famous and started touring, is going to come back and do a set at the Hartbeat after party. So if it rains, we're moving into our street tavern.
Tell me more about Kate. What is her deal?
So Kate Donnelly is her name, and she was one of the artists we connected with when we were playing shows. And she had a band here called Now for Ages, where she was dating her boyfriend, Eric. And they, I think, won some awards. I think they're one of their things won the CTNow.com Song of the Year. And then they broke up, and she moved out to Los Angeles, and she wrote a whole bunch of songs about her ex-boyfriend, and she got famous. And now he's hanging out here, and she's in LA touring with one of his favorite bands. It is a hilarious story, but she's awesome and doing really well. So she's going to come back and do that.
CT.now.com Song of the Year.
Yeah.
You got one of those.
We did.
Tidal Wave.
Yes.
I'm going to play it now. You want to give me a little setup?
Let's go. Yeah.
So tell me what we should know about it before we play it.
A former student of mine who I played in the band with for 10 years, his name is Jeremy Haddad. He and I did all the...
E.O. Smith student?
E.O. Smith student.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he lives out here. He plays a million solo shows. I'm sure you've seen him around. His name is Jeremy Haddad. He wrote this song called Tidal Wave before we put out our first album. And when we were recording it and when we were playing it out, I knew there was something to it. And then when we put it out, it won the CTNow.com Song of the Year in Connecticut. And then people started singing this song with us while we were on stage. It was pretty fun. That's Tidal Wave.
The founding members joins us this morning, Earl Henricson of the Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music. Earl, inquiring minds want to know, in this band, are there any professors?
I guess it depends on what you consider a professor. So I am a high school. Again, the whole name was a joke. I thought when Dave and I were like, well, let's play a performance, and we started talking about names, we thought the Professors of Sweet Music is funny, but the double sweet was even more hilarious, especially since we didn't really know a lot about music. So I am a high school teacher. Craig Huntington, who has been our lead guitar player for probably 6 or 7 years at this point, is the Porter Middle School Teacher of the Year. He teaches over in Columbia, so I don't know if you consider that a professor. Dave and Alyssa. Alyssa's our new singer. She's been with us for a year. They work at the School of Rock, and Ben, even our drummer, does some lessons. So a lot of us teach in some capacity. I don't know if you would consider us professors, but
Okay, I will. I will. And do people call you Possum?
yeah, it's how we ended up with the name Possum. Most people know us as Possum. We fought that at first. People started calling us Possum, and we were like, no, we're the Possum. And then we lost that battle, and we're Possum.
It's an acronym for the
Yeah.
name of the band, the
Yeah.
Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music. Do you write all your own stuff? Do you do any cover stuff?
We do both. Yeah, when we started out, we were doing mostly covers, but I was, again, having zero shame. I was like, let's start writing some songs. And so pretty early on, we started writing some songs. And I was playing ukulele when we started the band, too.
Tiny Tim?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I pulled out the ukulele, but I wrote a song called Mellow Life, which was a big, surfery thing. It was like the first original we had. There's probably a terrible YouTube video of it somewhere, but now we're a lot more indie rock electric stuff. But yeah, so we write a lot of our own music. I would say when we play, sets like this is an original music festival. So we'll play all of our original music. When we bring bands in, what we're looking for is bands that play original music. We want to share that with people. But if we're playing a 2.5 hour set, we'll do both, stuff we like. And our covers will range from all over the place, Sam Cooke and, Bill Withers up to Weezer and all sorts of stuff.
Well, Weezer's appropriate.
Yeah, that's right.
E.O. Smith background.
Right. Yeah.
And how important is it for a local band, now with certainly some statewide and maybe beyond the state borders presence, for things like YouTube, which is where I played that song from, or Spotify, to be able to get your music out? You look back 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't do that.
Yeah, I think being anything, being a business, being a restaurant, any of that sort of stuff, you really have to use social media. YouTube's part of that for the band. Yeah, this idea of content, I think you can fight it as much as you want, but I don't think you'll get out there and, get a little, whatever a following looks like and get the shows you want without really doing that. And so that's a balance. I did an interview recently with a friend of ours who's a musician out of New Haven, Marisa. She does a rock mommy blog where she interviews people who play music who are parents. And so we've talked a number of times, and I've always sort of stressed to her, and she's kept this with her for a while, that doing too much is not good. You're going to burn out, right? So you have to balance how much you're doing social media, how much you're playing, doing all that stuff, but you have to do it, right? So there's little clips you got to put up, and as a teacher, they've got to be sort of fun and engaging, but they got to be appropriate so we don't get fired. So there's this balance of all of the stuff we're doing. But I think dropping stuff on YouTube is a must, I would think, unless you're just the best of the best. Right? Maybe not, if you're the best of the best.
I have this image of you doing health and PE lesson plans for E.O. Smith, but in between the lesson plans, you're writing or rehearsing a song. How am I doing?
Yeah, I used to do a lot more of that stuff at school. It's been a while since I've written songs at school or brought in my guitar and played at school. But yeah, I'm just a guy who's interested in a lot of stuff. So I'm a really active guy. I love pickleball. I love ultimate frisbee. I love disc golf. So during my free time, I'm definitely, and I love to, hang out with my family, my wife Jane and my 12-year-old daughter Lillian. We do a lot of hiking. So when I'm not doing music stuff, I'm doing all that, and that keeps me happy, keeps me young, I guess.
We'll talk about some of that E.O. Smith health and PE stuff, along with more music from the Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music. The founding member, Earl Henrichon, joins us this morning. We'll have more after the news, sports. I'm joined this morning by a founding member of POSSM. You can call him Possum if you want. Earl Henrichon, who is a health and PE teacher at E.O. Smith High School. And Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music will be performing on June 14th at the Hartbeat Music Festival in Hartford. That song was called Wait and Wonder, Earl. Tell me the background behind it and what you guys were trying to accomplish. And was that you, guitar and vocals again?
Yeah, that was me, guitar and vocals, and Jeremy Haddad as well. We have a new singer, Alyssa Velasquez, who actually has a daughter at E.O. Smith right now, who's an incredible vocalist who's playing with us now. So Friday coming up, we're the 6th, we're at Priam Vineyards at 6 p.m. and then the following Saturday is Hartbeat. So the background behind Wait and Wonder is Craig Huntington, who's the lead guitar player, and I connected with him because kids were coming into E.O. Smith, into my school, and being like, you seem very similar. We had this teacher, and you guys have a very similar vibe, and he plays guitar in class, and so I emailed him, and he brought his band down, and we started playing some shows together, and eventually we just had him started sitting in with us, and when his band stopped playing together, we brought him into the mix. So he had this song that he wrote when he was young called Wait and Wonder. And we went off for like a little retreat to a cabin in Massachusetts a few years ago. And he brought this back out. And we were like, oh my God, let's go. So we came out of that weekend knowing this song and we recorded it. And it was one of those ones that became a thing for us. So we did a music video for this, our first ever music video. We went to Savers and bought a bunch of like retro clothes and we did awkward family photo shoot at my buddy's house. He's got some old stuff in there. And that became a music video. And Concentric Brewing Company in Portland, Connecticut saw the video and we're like, this is hilarious. We want to make a beer after you guys. We're going to call it Awkward Family Photo. So if you go to Concentric Brewing Company, you can get the Awkward Family Photo Citrus IPA. It was their best seller, and then they put our picture on the beer can. I have some of them at home, and then they took it off. I don't know if it was not their best seller anymore after our picture went on it. So our picture is not on there anymore, but it is the POSSM beer called Awkward Family Photos.
How do you do a music video? I'm thinking you must have developed a concept, and then people out there with cameras and stuff?
Yeah, we have a buddy, we have a photographer buddy named Bill Morgan, who we went to his house, the Cheney Mansion in Manchester. He lives there. And so we went there and shot the video. And then our buddy Jamil does a lot of video stuff. And so we asked him to just take a bunch of video. And we videoed in Ben and Dave, who are in our band, their basement, us playing the song along to the track. And then we went to the Cheney Mansion with our awkward family photo shoot. And he put it all together for us. He did a great job. So I think we had a little bit of a vision, but he basically made it happen. Jamil Ahmed, great. Advid Media out there if you want to check them out.
Now you're heading off to E.O. Smith today for your health and PE classes. So what's on the lesson plan for today? What are you going to be teaching the kids about health and PE?
Yeah, we're closing in on the end of the year, so I think they're hoping we'll do nothing, but we still got some stuff to do. Yeah. So we just finished up with, I'm teaching upperclassmen classes this semester, and we went through a lot of relationship stuff and like basically sexual health stuff with them, and now we've moved in sort of like the world of addictions, all the things that can create addictions and how you're going to handle that stuff. I think we're big on the big picture stuff, like what does this mean for you when you leave, E.O. Smith and you go out into the world? How do you handle that stuff? So we are having some conversations. We're doing some debates. They're taking in some information. We're watching some documentary stuff. That's what we do at the end of the year, and they'll do a little reflection at the end of that.
Health and PE. Now, in my mind, I'm thinking when I was in high school, they called it gym class. Yeah. Is that what this is?
No, those days are over. Yeah, so when I became department head, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, I sat down with the department. We just had PE classes, right? You would take PE, and you'd get 40 kids in a gym, and we'd just go through the basketball, football stuff, and I sort of started talking to the department about, like, is there a better way to do this? And so we settled on creating selectives. So the freshmen will come in and they'll get a little bit of everything for a semester, but then we allow them to choose their sort of PE path. So we created all these different classes. So we have yoga class and hiking class and sports performance where they create their own workouts. And then they sort of work towards a goal, and we have adventure PEs. We have an outdoor pursuits class where we had the E.O. Smith Foundation help us put a rock wall in the back gym, so they learn how to do that and work together and do. So there's a million different things that we have. I created an ultimate frisbee and rackets class, basically, so I could play frisbee with the kids in badminton and pickleball. So it's not like it used to be. Kids, and if they're not in a place where they want to be, we're like, this is not the class for you. Let's find the place that you're willing to put the effort into.
Earl, speaking of PE, and this is a guy that I was very close to, but I'm sure you had a relationship with Ron Pires.
Yeah, of course.
Ron Pires, what a tremendous guy he was. Maybe a couple of thoughts about what he brought to E.O. Smith and to our community.
Ron was an absolute legend. So actually, when I got there at E.O. Smith, I got hired to be the girls' varsity basketball coach for the first, I don't even know, 5 or 6 years that I was there. And I was always going to Ron, and I was always watching his practices, and I was stealing defenses from him. And I mean, he was not just an incredible basketball coach, but like just, he's a little old school. And so he had a lot of thoughts about discipline and how you like grow up and how you be a good teammate and how you be a good human. And I think the world misses people like Ron Pires, to be honest with you. He was a legend. And I think anybody who's come across him is grateful that they did.
Well, he was a romantic Cupid, among other reasons.
Yeah.
And not just was he a great coach, but he also was a great player.
Yeah.
I didn't see him at NFA, but I did see him a lot at Eastern Connecticut State University. I haven't played a charity game with him when I blew out my knee, but anyway.
He's in the Eastern Hall of Fame, right? We've heard crazy stories about, the point totals he would put up during games. Yeah, in college.
Just a great guy and a great
Yeah.
player, great
Agreed.
coach, and just a few thoughts about Ron Pires. Speaking of local, you guys are essentially a local band, and we've got a great local music scene around here. We were talking about Bruce John and Patty Tewitt and people
Yeah.
like that. Just a couple of thoughts about the local music scene we have going on here.
So our band, we're very fortunate, right? We get to do a lot of cool events and a lot of cool things. And as a surfer, we've now made some connections out in Rhode Island. So we're going to go play some, we're going to play a music series right on the beach of Rhode Island this summer. We did that last summer. And
When you talk about that, are you playing like Jan and Dean? Are you doing Miserloo and stuff like that?
Yeah, we do. We have our own. Craig wrote a surf song called Craig Surfs. We do. Yeah, we're all over the place. It's an original. It'll be on our new album. Actually, we got a new album coming out probably at the end of the summer with by far our best songs on it. There's some songs on there that I think are going to be, you'll be hearing on like local radio stuff. But yeah, so we're fortunate we could do a lot of cool stuff. But the reason this festival, this Hartbeat Music Festival, exists to begin with is because the local talent is out of this world. You mentioned some of the players in Willimantic. We connected on Jake Kulak. Bruce John has a strong connection to Jake Kulak, who is an incredible. He's a young guy. He's an incredible blues guitar player. We played a lot of shows with him. He's played at Hartbeat 2 or 3 times.
Stage here on our big music concert.
So there's a lot of overlap between the Hartford music scene and the Willimantic, Wyndham music scene. Wyndham Records doing shows. There's all sorts of Shabu Stage, and I love the lineup that Chris brings into the Willimantic Street Fest. And so Chris and I talk often about hey, what are you hearing for new local bands? We get hundreds of submissions for Hartbeat, so a lot of times I'll pass stuff on to Chris and he'll listen. And Tweed Sugar came out and played the Willimantic Street Fest. We had it at a Hartbeat pre-show. So I'm sorry to have diarrhea of the mouth about this, but we are passionate about the Connecticut music scene, and it pushes it, down into Bridgeport and New Haven, and we even pull from a little bit from Rhode Island and northeastern Massachusetts when we bring in bands for our festival. So on June 14th for Hartbeat, we have all sorts of incredible bands. I can't name them all, but we're the genres. The Alpaca Gnomes from down in Bridgeport are a pretty big band down there. They have a huge following. They have fans called Gnomies who wear little like cone hats and go to their shows. And they have a big family sort of atmosphere, family vibe. The Moonrise Cartel from that area has really blown up. They've been opening up for Stephen Kellogg. They have incredible harmonies, a great folk sound. We got the Soul Gyres, who I think one of my former students is actually in this band. I forgot her name, but I've been watching the videos. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she went to E.O. Smith. They're a young band. They do some reggae type stuff, and they've really blown up in the last year in that Hartford area. We've got DJ Late Night. We've got Hip Hop for the Homeless. My buddy Joey Batts from Hartford does a series of hip hop shows throughout Connecticut, and he raises money for homeless. So there'll be a lot of hip hop artists jumping on stage together. Michael Sanford Day and the Hard Feelings. Michael Sanford Day is a legend of the Connecticut music scene. He's had bands that have toured nationally, and he's won a lot of awards. So we have Latin music. We've got indie rock like Trashing Violet and Shame Penguin. We've got an artist who lives up in Boston, Chris Walton, who's a singer-songwriter. Big Joel and the Stolen Hearts is doing blues stuff. So it's a combo of like some really new bands and some younger bands with some real new sounds, and a combo of some sort of like local legend types. And then there's us. I don't know what you would call us, but we do our indie rock sort of thing. I'm really grateful to be part of this and to have a hand in it.
When people go to Hartbeat on June 14th, where do you park? In the big parking garage?
Yeah,
there?
great question. Great question. So yeah, there's a big parking garage right by the Science Center. You can park and maybe you pay a few bucks for the whole day, but that's the easiest thing to do. So there's street parking around, but the parking is right there in the Science Center, and there's plenty of parking. And you just walk right out to the Science Center if you want, out into the plaza. All this stuff is happening out on the Mortenson Riverfront Plaza on June 14th. It's free, it's family friendly, a lot of community vibes, a lot of great music. You're going to find a lot of new favorite bands.
It's an impressive long list of acts that'll be performing on June the 14th. Are you still looking for musicians, or is this year's agenda full?
This is full. We get emails and text messages leading up to the event. So this, we take in January, February, we get hundreds of submissions for this thing. And so it's a long process where I have a lot of local musicians and people who are willing to put in some time and energy to help pick the lineup. And we have a lot of factors that comes into it, right? So we want different sounds to represent the area that we live in. We want people who are like, community musicians. So we're looking at, like, when we're splitting hairs because all the musicians are awesome, who's sharing other people's music, who's following other musicians online. It's the kind of vibe we're looking for this festival. And so no, we're not looking for anybody currently, but next year after the festival, we'll put out a call for submissions, and we welcome. So we get submissions from like everywhere, but we give preference to the local bands.
As you should. Where was high school for you?
Oh, I'm an old man, Wayne. So I went to Putnam High School out in Putnam, Connecticut. I graduated in 1994. Yeah, I mean, I graduated with a class of like 50-something kids.
Did you think when you were in Putnam High School that you'd still be rocking and rolling at your current age?
Well, I had no interest in music at all when I was massively ADHD. I was into sports. I needed to move around. My parents would just kick me out of the house and go do stuff. So I didn't get into music until my 30s, which is why I think I enjoy this so much at still 48 years old, because it was this new thing. No, but, and I'm pretty sure all my teachers who had me in Putnam High School when I couldn't sit still were not like, look at this guy, he's going to go on to be a teacher and do stuff. But that's the cool thing about life, is that you get to discover new stuff and never stop sort of like having fun or being creative.
I showed you the picture of me in the 60s.
Yeah,
with my
you were a handsome guy.
Well, that ship has sailed. But I was playing my kind of collector's item vintage Gibson ES330 guitars, acoustic electric guitar, but I never really developed that talent, even though I've still got that guitar. But I wanted to learn how to play the guitar because of John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
Yeah.
And I still say to this day that the Beatles inspired an entire generation to want to learn not just guitar, but music. I learned keyboard because of the Beatles. I learned chords. I learned diminished chords and minor sixths and things like that. Who does that now? Who's done that since? That's one of the reasons why the Beatles were so unique.
Yeah. So I want to answer that question in a second, but I'm going to ask you a question first. Why did the Beatles...
I do the questions here.
Yeah, I'm curious, why did the Beatles do that for you?
Because the music was so great and so different. Nobody else was doing that back then. And we all wanted to be in a band. Okay, I wasn't in a band, but you kind of wanted to be like the Beatles. And you've actually done that in your own way.
Yeah. So, for me, it was the Beatles still. I think the Beatles have had their legacy. I mean, they only had like a 10-year window, right? The music they made, it's totally insane. And so
less than 10.
Yeah, that's nuts. The legacy that they've left, I mean, it's just, so it was for me, I think I mentioned to you off microphone that my parents were both ministers growing up, and they didn't really allow me to listen to any music that was any good growing up. And then so finally they allowed me to listen to the Beatles, and then it was Huey Lewis and the News, and I started. So who does that for people today? My daughter is 12 years old, and Taylor Swift definitely motivates her. She's been writing all of her own songs, and she doesn't know how to play any instruments yet, but she's got these crazy lyrics. I'm like, damn, I wish I could write a lyric like that. So I think probably Taylor Swift is inspiring people.
That's
in that
the best answer to that question I've ever heard.
I mean,
I like that.
It seems obvious, right? That's not for me, but for a generation of young people, especially young girls, I would say. I think that's, so for me now, I'm really inspired by bands like The Strokes, who are no longer around, indie bands, Arctic Monkeys, I love, the Black Keys. The thing about our band that I think is really interesting is we all have totally different musical tastes. And so when you hear our new album that's going to come out at the end of the summer, the sounds are all over the place. So, we have people who are super into heavy metal, and we all grew up sort of loving Tool and the Beastie Boys. And so there's some overlap on stuff, but I really love indie rock sounds. And I think on a really local level, we were constantly bringing friends up and like, hey, why don't you grab a guitar or come sing a song with me? And a whole bunch of them started bands locally, which I'm like super pumped about. Heather McClarney and Illuminous and all these local bands. Some of them have played Hartbeat, have gone on to do some really cool stuff. Heather's solo albums has twice been named one of the top albums in Connecticut, and she started playing music when she just jumped up on stage with us. So
a lot of people who go to UConn basketball games see the guy that goes out there on the court, sort of the
boy
guy that gets the crowd involved. His name is Conor Geary. They may not know his name, but they certainly see him if they go to games. What's your connection to him?
Yeah, so my guy, I mean, Hartford's sort of a small community, right? So we've gotten to know people who do all sorts of stuff. My wife and I have known Connor forever, way before he became the voice of the Yard Goats. And he hosted an event that my wife put on, and the MC didn't show up. And so he grabbed the microphone, and we were like all blown away by his off the cuff hilariousness and just his ability to just host a thing. So we've known Connor forever, and not the least bit surprised that once he got the Yard Goats job doing the on-field stuff, that then it became UConn, and then it became an opportunity to do an NFL team, and he's gone out and done like the Sweet 16. I mean, you're going to see that guy doing this forever. He was born to do that. So yeah, my wife and I have known Connor and his family for a while. We're super, super happy for him. He's a great guy, really funny. I know you've connected with him over at UConn, and when you see him, give him a little punch in the stomach for me.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Do that, everybody. You're going to get one on the way out.
Yeah, right.
Earl, this was lots of fun.
It was a
And
blast.
I know people are going to have a good time seeing you guys at the Hartbeat Music Festival on June the 14th, and maybe at some point down here at the River Room.
Yeah.
Connecting with Chris Beaudry, who's how you got connected to me here this morning. The band is called the Professors of Sweet, Sweet Music. He's a founding member, Earl Henderson, who's now heading off to E.O. Smith to teach health and PE.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. Great to meet you.
Wayne, thanks for having me, man. Hartbeat Music Festival, June 14th, noon to 9 p.m., right on Mortenson Riverfront Plaza.
Be there,
Thanks,
don't
Wayne.
be square.
You got it.